The evening air was thick with an impending storm, the smell of rain mixing with tension that crackled like electricity between Jake and his wife, Sarah. He returned home late from work, exhausted from a grueling week of overtime shifts that were never ending. He had spent those long days in a cubicle, sacrificing personal time for financial stability, convinced that he was doing it for the family he loved. Yet, as he stepped through the door, a sense of unease washed over him, almost palpable. Sarah had been distant lately, her laughter hollow and her touches feather-light, as if she were a world away. But Jake ignored the warning signs. He believed in the strength of their marriage, the years they had built together. They had 2 kids, a house that represented stability, and a future that seemed bright. Little did he know, the roots of betrayal were growing deep beneath the surface of their lives. That night, as thunder rumbled outside, he found her sitting on the couch, her phone clutched tightly in her hand, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. He could see her smile, a glimmer that made his stomach churn with suspicion. "Sarah, can I talk to you?" he asked, his voice steady despite the weight of uncertainty that clung to him. "Sure," she replied, avoiding his gaze. And for a fleeting moment, Jake felt a pang of doubt, a sense that something was about to shatter his world. "Is everything okay?" he pressed, watching her shift uncomfortably, her fingers tapping the screen as if it held the answers he was dreading to find. "You've seemed a bit off lately." She rolled her eyes, the dismissive gesture sending a jolt of anger through him. "I'm just busy, Jake. You're hardly ever home, and the kids." The words tangled in his mind. She was at home. Why wasn't she being more supportive? She should be eager to reach out to him, not pushing him away. He took a deep breath, resisting the urge to lash out. "Sarah, I'm doing this for us. I work long hours so that we can have a good life." "Working hard doesn't mean you're always here," she snapped, her frustration bubbling over. "Sometimes it feels like we're just 2 strangers sharing a space." As her words hung in the air, he felt the chill of disconnection. Ignoring the shifting tides in his chest, he decided to let it go, thinking they could salvage the evening. Suddenly, the phone buzzed, vibrating against the wood of the coffee table, drawing both of their gazes. Sarah reached for it, a flash of panic flitting across her features. "Who's that?" Jake demanded, anger mounting. She hesitated, her fingers hovering above the screen, and in that moment, a torrent of suspicion spilled forth. "It's just a friend from work," she stammered, a half-hearted excuse that set alarm bells ringing in his head. Jake moved closer, a whirlwind of emotions surging within him. "Just a friend, huh? Then let me see it." He reached for the phone, and she flinched back, a look of fear and guilt etched into her expression. "Why do you want to see my phone?" "Because I want to trust you, but your actions make it impossible." The accusation hung between them, thick and suffocating. Jake's heart raced as he grabbed the phone, her protest turning into a high-pitched wail as he unlocked it, scrolling through the messages that would tear their world apart. The screen lit up with flirty exchanges, sweet nothings that dripped with affection, and explicit plans to meet. Jake felt the blood drain from his face as he read words that were not meant for him, but for someone named David, a name that seemed foreign and taunting. The betrayal felt like an anchor sinking deep into his chest, holding him in a place he couldn't escape. "How could you?" he whispered, his voice breaking as shock transformed into an all-consuming rage. "Jake, wait! Wait for what, Sarah?" "For you to explain how you've been lying to me. How long has this been going on?" He threw the phone down onto the couch, the clatter echoing in the dead silence of their home. Tears pooled in her eyes, but he was beyond empathy now. His heart hardened by the stinging realization that everything he had fought for was built on a lie. It was just a distraction, nothing serious. "I didn't want to hurt you," she implored, but her words fell flat, like stones dropping into a void. He couldn't stand her anymore. The anger rose like lava, and in that moment, The primal urge to destroy the betrayer burned inside him. "You didn't want to hurt me? You took everything I've worked for, and for what? A chance to feel excited?" The storm outside burst forth, rain lashing against the windows as if nature itself was reacting to the chaos within. He stared at Sarah, the woman he had trusted, the mother of his children, and he felt cold. "This is over," he declared, ripping through the delusion of love and partnership they had spun together. But as his pain shifted into anger, a new sense of clarity settled over him. It wasn't just about the betrayal. This was about reclaiming his life. The quiet man who worked tirelessly to provide for his family was gone, replaced by someone hungry for justice and retribution. Jake turned away from the shattered remains of their marriage, a wildfire igniting in his chest. Soon enough, he would not just expose Sarah for who she truly was, he would ensure she faced the consequences of her actions. As the first drops of rain began to fall, Jake thought about the future. No more complacency. He would fight back with a relentless ferocity that would shake her to her core. The invisible chains of trust and loyalty would be broken, replaced with a web of calculation and vengeance. And how sweet would that triumph be? He was done being in the dark. The time for action was coming, and he would not back down. In the face of deception, he would be the storm. In the following days, Jake's world spun into chaos as he unraveled the life he thought he knew. Each interaction with Sarah confirmed the distance between them, her eyes now filled with a mixture of guilt and defiance. Whatever remnants of love had existed between them were being strangled by his rising anger. He felt awakened, almost ecstatic, at the prospect of reclaiming his life. He would not merely recover from betrayal. He would emerge victorious, a phoenix rising from this figurative inferno. He spent nights poring over their finances, each document a puzzle piece, revealing the depth of Sarah's deception. He discovered transfers to a restaurant that sounded fancy, receipts for lavish dinners, and the secret shared account that had been siphoned without his knowledge. She had used his hard-earned money to fuel her affair, living beyond their means while he sacrificed his time, energy, and sanity for a family that was crumbling with every passing day. Jake's inner circle had always emphasized empathy and second chances, but he now understood that forgiveness could be a mask worn by the weak. He began devising a plan that was meticulous in its cruelty, yet shrewd in its execution. He would expose Sarah not just as a cheater, but as a manipulator, a parasite feeding off trust and love. With cold determination, he realized that her public downfall was the sweetest outcome he could envision. As autumn leaves turned to shades of decay outside their home, the atmosphere in the house began to shift. Jake shifted into a version of himself that thrived on control, taking comfort in the thought of wielding the hammer of justice against the betrayal. He gathered evidence, forwarded messages, screenshots of bank statements, and voice recordings. Every late-night rendezvous became a breadcrumb, leading to a feast of retribution. And he wasn't going to indulge softly. He prepared for the inevitable confrontation. It would be explosive, and he wanted every soul in the room to witness the destruction of her facade. Jake planned for the corporate retreat that was fast approaching, a perfect opportunity coated in professionalism that would mask the chaos underneath. He had invited their closest friends and colleagues. Everyone would gather in celebration, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just below the polite surface. On the day of the retreat, Jake's anticipation crackled in the air. He donned his best attire, a tailored suit that exuded confidence. Amid the ocean of laughter and business conversations, his heart matched the rhythm of the jubilant crowd. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the gathering, It was time. He had arranged for Sarah to deliver a speech at the event, an unsuspecting moment to juxtapose her public persona with the truth he would soon expose. As she stood on stage, eloquently discussing teamwork and the importance of unity, every word became a bitter irony to Jake. She was gallivanting in her constructed reality, while he wielded the truth as his weapon. Then came the moment of reckoning. In the middle of her speech, he took the microphone, the crowd falling silent as they sensed the shift in energy. "Excuse me, everyone," he began, his voice steady but laced with intensity. "I have something to share that doesn't belong in the shadows anymore." Gasps filled the room, chatter died down, and Sarah's face paled as she caught the glint of his gaze. With calculated precision, he revealed their private exchanges, texts of intimacy shared with David, messages that should have been reserved for a devoted spouse. Jake's brief exposure of her treachery morphed into a legal avalanche as he presented documents about their finances, complete with proof of the siphoning she had orchestrated. Shock swept through the audience like wildfire, eyes darting between Jake and Sarah. "I thought I knew you," he spat, as the crowd's chatter erupted into disbelief. "But you've proven to be a master of deceit. To think you had the gall to stand here and talk about loyalty." "Jake, please," Sarah pleaded, but her voice was drowned beneath the rising tide of murmurs from friends and colleagues, shocked by the betrayal that had festered in plain sight. "In front of everyone, you told me you needed this marriage, but what you needed was a hidden life, one built on lies and infidelity," he continued, eyes locked onto Sarah's. "I will not let you wear my trust like a cloak while you trample on everything I have ever believed in." Gasps turned to disdain, eyes filled with both sympathy for Jake and contempt for Sarah. Friends who had once accepted her as one of their own faltered, unable to reconcile their image of her with the woman on trial before them. Her reputation, built meticulously over years, crumbled under the weight of undeniable evidence and public scrutiny. The ambiance transformed into something palpable, a thick cloud of shame encasing Sarah as her facade shattered around her. Jake felt a surge of triumph, a vindication that washed over him as he surged forward with the final blow. "You think you can come back from this? Let me be clear. You have not only lost my trust, you've lost the respect of everyone who ever cared about you." He stepped back, allowing the silence to amplify the truth. As the retreat spiraled into an echo of chaos, Jake made a swift decision to finalize what needed to be done. He swiftly approached their financial advisor in the crowd, making it known that accounts should be frozen and all assets controlled. Sarah's life, carefully curated on deceit, would falter, strip her of her means, her security, and the threads she had woven into deceit. Once the dust settled and the crowd dispersed, Jake felt the adrenaline coursing through him, leaving a sense of liberation in its wake. Sarah stumbled after him, her attempts to plead now falling on stone-cold walls, bolstered by the confidence he had gained through his own revival. "You don't have to do this, Jake," she cried, the desperation rising in her voice. "I swear it was a mistake. I promise we can work this out." He chuckled softly, shaking his head in mock disbelief. "Work this out? You had your chance the moment you chose to hurt me." He took a step back, savoring the irony that the woman who once held his heart was now nothing but a reflection of betrayal. "Do you really think anyone will stand by you after this? We're done, and that's not up for discussion." Tears streamed down her face, but as he looked at her, all he could feel was an invigorating sense of closure. The storm within him had calmed. He had harnessed the strength he never knew he possessed and delivered justice with calculated precision. "Goodbye, Sarah," he stated, unfazed by her helpless sobs, knowing that the path ahead would be one free from the shadows she cast over his life. He turned away, leaving her behind, stepping into a future that was entirely his own, marked by clarity and freedom. It wasn't about winning, it was about reclaiming the self he lost while navigating the turbulent waters of trust, love, and betrayal. Jake had fought a battle, emerging not as a victim but as a titan of his own rebirth, ready to embrace the undulating possibilities awaiting him beyond the wreckage. With Sarah's desperate calls fading behind him, Jake stepped out into the crisp evening air, the weight of the world lifting from his shoulders. He took a deep breath, inhaling the smell of rain-soaked earth, feeling a surge of control crackle through him. Outside the corporate retreat venue, the embers of his vengeful triumph glowed brightly, fueling a desire to move forward with fierce intent. He was no longer an ordinary man, subjected to the whims of a deceitful partner. He was a man reborn through fire and betrayal, ready to take on the world that had conspired against him. The fallout from his confrontation with Sarah spread quickly through their social circle. Friends who had stood by her during the years were now questioning her loyalty. Gossip reverberated through their community, each conversation echoing Jake's disclosures. The weight of social opinion shifted dramatically as people began distancing themselves from Sarah. As Jake waded through the wreckage of their shared lives, he found empowerment in watching the pieces fall apart around her. However, the emotional scars still ran deep. The anger had given way to a mixture of exhilaration and lingering sadness. Jake's home, once a sanctuary, felt foreign without Sarah's presence. He began to reclaim his space, each room etched with memories of happier times, now haunting reminders of betrayal. He transformed the chaos into clarity, turning one of their spare rooms into a personal office where he could plot the course for the life he desired, a life where he would stand tall, anchored by a newfound sense of self-worth. As the days passed, he also took on the business aspect of his newfound revenge. With Sarah's accounts frozen and her financial manipulation laid bare, Jake enlisted the aid of a lawyer who specialized in divorce cases involving infidelity. Their strategy was clear: dismantle whatever remained of Sarah's reputation while securing the financial stability he had fought so hard to achieve. He was dedicated, not just to winning, but to ensuring that Sarah faced the consequences she deserved. Every document signed, every piece of evidence submitted, was an affirmation of his commitment to releasing himself from the shackles of betrayal. The process became cathartic, an act of empowerment. He dove deeper into the proceedings, turning the tables on financial exploitation. With each court date, he visualized a future freed from the ruin Sarah had orchestrated, and the raw energy of that hope propelled him forward. Jake methodically gathered testimonies from friends who had witnessed Sarah's deceit. Their collective voices shattered any last vestiges of Sarah's credibility. Word spread that Jake had become the champion of truth, while Sarah became the pariah of their social sphere. Her attempts to regain a foothold were futile. She tried to mend relationships with people who had once valued her, but loyalty could not be rekindled in the embers of her disgrace. The day the court case began, Jake walked into the building with confidence pulsating through him. He was equipped with evidence, backed by a supportive network, ready to testify against Sarah. The courtroom was charged with tension. The stakes felt monumental. Friends filled the benches, and even strangers seemed intrigued by the friction coursing through the air. Jake watched as Sarah took her seat, her facade of calmness crumbling under the weight of her circumstances. The judge presiding over the case listened attentively as Jake's attorney laid out the facts. Each betrayal and lascivious detail, unveiled under the harsh light of scrutiny, served to chip away at any semblance of dignity Sarah still clung to. Witness after witness corroborated Jake's accounts of Sarah's infidelity, and as the evidence mounted, he saw her confidence evaporate. Her face paled and her shoulders slumped, sagging under the ridicule that was soon to follow. The emotional pulse of the courtroom quickened in rhythm with Jake's resolve as he took the stand. "Your Honor," he began, voice steady, "this isn't just about financial injustice. This is about a man who invested everything into a marriage that was poisoned by betrayal. I can't allow that poison to seep into the lives of my children." His declaration ignited murmurs in the gallery. He kept his gaze focused on Sarah, who squirmed under the scrutiny of everyone in the room. "For years, I worked hard to provide for my family, while trusting my partner. This was the commitment I believed we made together. I faced long nights while she chose the company of another during those same hours," Jake continued, his voice gathering strength. "But it's time to level the playing field." The courtroom buzzed with a mixture of disbelief and shock as Jake laid out his argument for not only custody of their children, but for a divorce that stripped Sarah of her access to their shared assets. The words flowed from him, a river of vindication washing over his regret, transforming pain into a powerful statement of self-worth. As Jake concluded his testimony, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted further. The judge's expression hardened, a clear acknowledgement of the betrayal that permeated the case. He wasn't granting Sarah an easy exit. This was a reckoning, a moment when the pendulum swung decisively in Jake's favor, a moment that would echo in the annals of their once cozy lives. When the judge delivered the ruling several weeks later, it felt like the culmination of a long-fought battle. Jake was granted full custody of their children, with Sarah's access limited to supervised visits, and he would retain the house they had shared. The sum total of his financial security would not be compromised by the very betrayal that had tried to dismantle him. As he left the courtroom, a sense of triumph washed over him, intermingling with feelings of bittersweet nostalgia. He had fought to protect his children and reclaimed his stability. The damage Sarah had caused would forever stain their lives, but Jake had finally emerged victorious. He didn't just end the chapter on their marriage, he cemented his evolution from a man left broken into a resolute pillar of strength. He knew the memories would linger, but he also understood that some scars were simply reminders of battles fought and won. Jake left that day feeling renewed. The path ahead was filled with possibilities, and as he walked through the exit, he embraced the freedom now granted to him. He had survived the storm. Now, he was ready to build a life from the ashes. No longer a victim, he moved forward with purpose, a loner yet resolute, determined to write a new narrative. Resilience would define him. And as he stepped out into the sunlight, the warmth washed over him, a promise of change, of brighter days ahead, unshackled from the darkness that had once enveloped him. The days following the court ruling felt surreal to Jake, a juxtaposition of triumph and lingering pain. He had dismantled the life that Sarah had built on a foundation of betrayal. And yet, as he settled into his new routine, there was a void left by the end of his marriage. The echoes of their shared laughter and the warmth of family dinners were now distant memories, replaced by the stark reality of single fatherhood. Jake devoted himself to his children, pouring the remnants of his energy into their happiness. He filled their weekends with adventures, trips to the park, board game marathons, and movie nights complete with popcorn and homemade treats. Soon their laughter began to fill the void that had once been occupied by Sarah's deceitful presence. With every giggle and every bedtime story, he realized the depth of his love for them, a wellspring of purpose that pulsed with renewed vigor. But even as he embraced this new chapter, he couldn't shake the remnants of anger that still simmered beneath the surface. The way Sarah had manipulated their lives, the pain she had inflicted, it needed acknowledgement. Before him lay the possibility of closure, one that extended beyond being a devoted father. He needed to confront the emotional shackles that still held him captive. One evening, Jake decided to sift through old photographs, searching for moments that captured the essence of their past. As he thumbed through the pile, he discovered a small packet tucked away at the bottom, a series of letters he had written to Sarah during the early days of their courtship, filled with promises, dreams, and affection. Reading them stirred something deep inside him, a complex mix of nostalgia and resentment. Each meticulously penned note now felt tainted by Sarah's betrayal. That night he burned the letters, the flames consuming the remnants of his memories and the visions of a future that no longer existed. As the embers flickered in the chill of the evening air, Jake felt a release. It was symbolic. He was letting go of his attachment to the past. No longer bound by the illusion of what was, he was free to explore the uncertainties of the future. Fueled by newfound strength, Jake also decided to pursue his professional aspirations. With the financial future of his family secured, he realized he now held the reins of his own destiny. With workers facing layoffs within his company and opportunity lurking in every corner, he seized the moment to pitch a new project that had been simmering in the back of his mind. His proposal centered on creating an initiative that empowered single parents, a community he was now part of. He understood the struggles they faced, often feeling isolated and unsupported, just like he had been. With compelling statistics and a passionate presentation, he sought to build a support network that provided resources, parenting workshops, and emotional assistance. To his surprise, the company's management embraced the concept, inspired by Jake's commitment and personal journey. The launch of the initiative was scheduled for the upcoming quarterly meeting. The excitement pulsing through Jake throughout the preparations inspired a rekindling of ambition he hadn't felt in years. He was not just a victim returning to a new ordinary. He was becoming a beacon for others in similar situations. As the initiative took shape, something immense began to shift within Jake. He found himself connecting with others, sharing stories of heartache, resilience, and hope. This community became a source of strength, and as Jake listened to parents recount their struggles, he realized they had all experienced the same raw emotions, the feelings of betrayal, loss, and desperately wanting to rebuild. In these moments, Jake found catharsis. Allowing himself to embrace vulnerability, he began to weave healing into his own narrative. Workshops flourished, fostering open discussions about emotional well-being, parenting struggles, and shared triumphs. Each session became a revolutionary space, a haven for parents who felt lost. As the community grew, so did Jake's sense of purpose. Despite his emotional emancipation, the residual rage he felt towards Sarah began to surface unexpectedly. One fateful afternoon, a local news outlet contacted Jake, expressing interest in featuring his initiative. It was an incredible opportunity to share the journey, raise awareness, and portray the importance of support for single parents. But just as he relished in this development, he received an unexpected phone call from Sarah. "Jake," she began, her voice trembling on the other end. "I know I messed up, but I want to talk about what happened. I'm sorry." His stomach twisted, torn between a desire to hear her out and an instinct to hang up. "Sarah," he replied, trying to maintain his composure, "there is nothing to talk about. You made your choices, and I've moved on." "Please, I need to explain," she pleaded, desperation bubbling to the surface. "I broke things off with David. I was so confused. I thought..." "Thought what? That I would wait around for you to figure things out?" The warmth and vulnerability built with his community surged forth, fortifying his resolve. "You chose to hurt me, to destroy our family. I don't need explanations or promises. I don't want them. You've lost everything here. Jake, please, she broke down, her cries echoing through the phone. I'm trying to take responsibility. He clenched his jaw, disgust coiling in his stomach. You think responsibility comes from simple words? No, Sarah. It comes from actions, and yours have been empty for too long. I'm not going to let you weave back into my life like a safety net when you were the one who cut the rope. As Sarah's sobs spiraled into silence, he could sense the suffocating hold of misplaced guilt release its grip on him. He was standing firm, rooted in his newfound identity. No longer a man defined by betrayal. I hope you can find a way to rebuild, but I won't be part of it, he concluded, the power of his resolve echoing through him. He hung up with finality, a flash of relief washing over him. In the weeks that followed, Jake's initiative went live, capturing the attention and support of many. The news piece drew attention from a wider audience, growing advocacy for single parents throughout the community. Jake stood up on the dais, sharing his story, the journey from heartbreak to strength. As people connected and cheered, he knew he had woven a new life for himself, driven by purpose, resilience, and the passion for helping others. As his voice resonated through the crowd, Jake felt a sense of triumph he had never anticipated. A life once shattered was now full of promise. The clarity that he had emerged a stronger man, ready to embrace what lay ahead, filled him with an unrelenting energy. In that moment, he realized he had not only reclaimed his life, but had crafted a future built on solidity, fulfilling relationships, and hope. As applause echoed in the air, a gentle smile crept across his face. It was a smile of liberation, a promise to himself that he would not only survive, but thrive. He was no longer just Jake, the man left behind. He had become Jake, the architect of his destiny, a man of strength, purpose, and compassion. And with that realization, he stepped boldly into the future, ready to forge a new path. With the initiative flourishing, Jake found himself at the helm of a movement larger than he had ever imagined. The outpouring of support from the community was invigorating. Local businesses contributed resources, and volunteers stepped up to aid in organizing events. Each gathering became a celebration of new beginnings, showcasing resilience and forging connections among single parents navigating similar storms. Jake was not just helping those in need, he was also healing himself in the process, finding new purpose through shared stories and experiences. As the weeks went by, he threw himself into the work, spearheading workshops, mentorship programs, and family activities. He had become a figure of strength in the community, admired for his passion and dedication. But beneath this newfound confidence lay remnants of pain that occasionally flared up, whispers of insecurity that he had yet to fully extinguish. One day, after a particularly rewarding workshop focused on rebuilding self-esteem, Jake was approached by a fellow parent, Laura. She had joined the initiative recently, finding solace in the support it provided. With a warm smile and a spark of interest in her deep brown eyes, she approached him. "Jake, can I talk to you for a moment?" she inquired, her voice soft, yet imbued with determination. "I just wanted to thank you for everything. This group has changed my life." "I don't think I'd be standing here without it." Jake smiled, feeling a rush of gratitude. "I'm glad to hear that, Laura. This community thrives on shared strength," he replied. "You've contributed so much. It's a team effort." She nodded, her expression shifting slightly. "There's something more I wanted to discuss. I've seen how you've embraced this journey and emerged stronger. Seeing you, it makes me believe that I can do the same." But I also can't ignore this connection we have. He felt a spark of attraction flicker inside him, warming him. The thought resonated deeply, yet a voice in the back of his mind cautioned him. Laura, I appreciate your kind words. It means a lot to me, he began, carefully navigating the delicate path before him. But I want you to know that I hope to keep this as a positive space for everyone. Of course, she replied, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. I just thought it was important to express that. I'm not asking for anything right now. Just thought I'd share my appreciation. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him as their conversation continued. He still focused on healing, ensuring that any romantic sparks would not derail the progress he had made. Laura's presence offered comfort and camaraderie, though, and he relished their moments together within the community. As the months rolled on, the initiative grew. Jake became an advocate at local events, sharing his story and inspiring others to unite against the stigma surrounding single parents. The warmth of the surrounding community bolstered his confidence, and he began to envision a future where his experiences could help others on a broader scale. One evening, after a particularly successful community dinner organized for single parents and their children, tragedy struck. Jake received a frantic call from the school principal, informing him that Sarah had tried to pick up the kids from school. Unsupervised and without prior permission, Sarah had returned to their lives with a reckless audacity that rattled Jake. His heart raced as he rushed to the school, dread overtaking him. When he arrived, chaos encircled the front entrance. He spotted Sarah speaking to an officer, her demeanor a mix of desperation and agitation. Jake stepped forward, unwavering and resolute, as their eyes locked. Shock rippled through him. How could she even think to show up unannounced after everything? Sarah, what are you doing here? He demanded, struggling to maintain a measured tone amid the chaotic environment. You can't just come and demand to see the kids. Just give me a chance to talk to them, Jake. I've been working on myself, she implored, her face an unreadable mask of vulnerability and defensiveness. I messed up, I know that. But I need to be in their lives. The sight of her was jarring. There was an intensity in her eyes that reminded him of the past. He steeled himself against any remnants of sympathy, resisting the automatic pull of familiarity that once connected them. You have no right to engage them like this. You're still under restrictions laid out by the court, Sarah. I'm trying to change, Jake. You don't understand how hard this is for me? Can we just sit down and talk? Her voice cracked as emotions bubbled to the surface. No, Sarah. You don't get to decide how or when to show up. You had your chances. You made your choices, he shot back, anger igniting within him. You think you can just bounce back after abandoning your responsibilities? That's not how it works. Not anymore. Please, she cried, her voice piercing through the noise around them. As Jake looked deeper into her eyes, it became apparent that the woman before him was battling fierce demons, just as he had done. But his resolve was fortified by the knowledge of what she had taken from him and their children. An officer stepped in, assessing the situation with a glare that commanded attention. Ma'am, you're not allowed to contact the children without supervision. If you don't comply, we will have to escalate this matter. Sarah's desperation warped into anger. I just want to be a mother. To fix my mistakes, she shouted, her voice cracking. Why won't you let me? Because you're only thinking of yourself, Jake countered sharply, the trembling control he maintained becoming an iron wall. Amid the exchange, Jake felt his children's presence beside him. Fear mingled with confusion painted their faces as they watched their mother unravel. In that moment, he realized he was not just protecting himself. He was shielding them from the instability that had plagued their past. Children, "Let's step back," he whispered, drawing them away from the scene before returning his focus to Sarah. "This isn't how we mend broken bridges. You need to acknowledge the hurt first. It's not about fixing things overnight. You need to earn trust, not demand it." The realization transformed him. The man who had been shattered into pieces now stood solid, ready to protect his family. "I hope you seek help and find a way to heal," he added, his voice calm but unwavering. "But you cannot impose yourself on our lives when trust has yet to be restored." With that, he turned away, ushering his children to safety, a sense of closure enveloping him. The echoes of Sarah's pleas rang in his ears, yet he stood firm in his decision. The pain he had endured would no longer dictate his reality, nor would it allow her to disrupt their hard-fought recovery. As they drove away, Jake couldn't help but reflect on how much he had grown. Rebuffing the chaos and asserting his boundaries had solidified his role as a protector, not only as a parent, but as an individual reclaiming his life. In the weeks that followed, there was no further pursuit from Sarah, but her presence lingered like a gentle ache at the edges of his newfound stability. The journey ahead remained fraught with complexities, yet he was armed with clarity and determination. He directed his focus back to the initiative, the strength of community becoming a vital anchor as he solidified new routines with his children, cultivating open, supportive dialogues about their feelings regarding their mother. Each moment spent fostering trusting conversations brought solace and healing, amplifying the bond that had been tested but remained unbroken. In time, Jake offered himself the chance to embrace love again, this time cautiously and with intention. Through the connections born from their shared experiences, he began to explore deeper feelings for someone who understood the raw realities of single parenthood, someone who offered companionship without the burden of the past clinging to their shoulders. The journey wouldn't be without challenges, but with each step, Jake's resolve grew stronger. Forgiveness remained a distant thought, but it wasn't his mission. At this moment, his focus was on nurturing himself and cultivating the thriving life he envisioned for his children, a life rooted in resilience, love, and an unwavering commitment to forging ahead. Across the horizon was the promise of new days, brimming with hope and boundless potential. The days turned into weeks, and as the seasons shifted from the vibrant colors of autumn to the dull grays of winter, Jake continued to build a new life for him and his children. The healing process was ongoing. It required patience and an unwavering commitment to transparency. He remained focused on nurturing the emotional landscape they had cultivated, emphasizing the importance of communication and trust. Jake's unexpected bond with Laura grew stronger as they began to spend more time together during community events. Their shared experiences in the single-parenting landscape forged a connection that was grounded in understanding and empathy. Jake was grateful for her company. She didn't push him to dwell too much on the past. Instead, she encouraged him to envision a future uninhibited by fear. One evening, while preparing for a holiday gathering aimed at bringing families together, Jake found himself at a crossroads. The festive atmosphere filled the air, the soft glow of twinkling lights casting a warm ambiance around the room. Families laughed, children played, and he could feel the joy enveloping the gathering. Yet, as he arranged decorations alongside Laura, he couldn't shake the uncertainty simmering just beneath the surface. "Jake, it's great to see this community come together like this," Laura said as she hung a garland across the mantel. Her voice cut through his reverie, and he turned to find her smile bright against the shadows of his thoughts. "It really is," he replied, feeling a sense of warmth spread through him. It's a testament to how much healing can happen when we support one another. Exactly. I think it's important for us to celebrate these moments, she continued. But you seem a bit distracted. Is everything okay? His heart raced. The prospect of vulnerability loomed before him. But this was a different space, a safe space. I guess I'm just contemplating moving forward. With everything that happened with Sarah, I'm still learning to navigate what it means to trust again, he admitted, the honesty spilling out in a rush. Laura met his gaze with a soft understanding that made him feel seen. That's completely valid, she affirmed. Trust takes time to rebuild. It's okay to give yourself that space. After everything you've been through, who wouldn't feel hesitant? He nodded, appreciating both her insight and the timely reminder that healing wasn't linear. I've worked so hard to keep a steady course for my kids. I can't shake off the fear that I'll somehow lose control again, and it terrifies me, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. You're not alone in that, Jake. We all carry our fears. Facing them is part of the process. Laura stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his unflinchingly. A warmth enveloped him, a soothing contrast to the chill lurking in the back of his mind. Thank you, he replied genuinely. There was a flicker of something between them, an almost electric connection that felt inviting, yet it was tangled with the apprehension of opening up again. As the gathering began, joy filled the air, laughter intermingling with the delicious scents wafting from the kitchen. Jake watched as his children played with friends, their faces lit up with delight. He reveled in nurturing this sacred space, filled with acceptance and community, something that had felt elusive for too long. However, the gathering took an unexpected turn when Sarah showed up unannounced. She stood at the entrance, her breath visible in the frigid air, wearing a coat that hung loosely on her frame. Panic gripped Jake as their eyes met. Her vulnerability was palpable, and he could see the uncertainty etched into her features. Jake felt a wave of protective instinct course through him as he diverted his gaze back to Laura, who looked equally startled by Sarah's presence. Jake, Laura said quietly, are you going to talk to her? It's a complicated situation, he murmured, feeling anger creep in. I don't want to disrupt the evening. Or maybe this is your chance for closure, Laura suggested softly, her gaze steady as she encouraged him to consider the possibilities. I know it's unsettling, but maybe it could lead to some healing. Swallowing hard, he took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. Walking towards Sarah was something he never anticipated. He valued his newfound sense of peace, yet perhaps there lay an opportunity for dialogue. As he approached her, the tension thickened in the air. Jake, Sarah said, voice barely above a whisper as he stepped closer. He studied her face. It was devoid of makeup, revealing the toll the past months had taken on her. I'm sorry for crashing the party. I wanted to see the kids, but I understand if you're not okay with it. Sarah, he started, struggling to maintain his composure. You don't have the right to show up here like this, not after everything. I know, she said, tears brimming in her eyes. I'm trying to change. I've sought help and I'm working on myself. I miss them. I miss you. It's not that simple, he replied, feeling the familiar conflict churn inside him. I can't just erase what you've done. You need to respect the boundaries set for a reason. Please, she implored, her voice breaking. Let me show you. I want to be a part of their lives again. I miss being a mother. Jake's heart ached at her confession, but he held firm to his convictions. You need to rebuild trust first. It won't happen overnight. I need to protect my children above all else. At that, Jake glanced around for his children, wishing to shield them from an emotional upheaval. His instincts were razor sharp, and he refused to allow Sarah to divert him from their healing journey. Then can we talk? She asked, desperation palpable in her voice. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I can be the parent they need. Fine, he relented. feeling pulled between duty and pain. But he emphasized, "This is only a discussion. Don't put your weight on them. They've suffered enough." As they stepped away from the gathering, Jake felt a whirlwind of emotions surging inside him: fear, anger, and something bordering on nausea. But through it all, he held on to one steadfast truth. He now carried the power to dictate the course of their dialogue. In a quiet corner away from the festivities, Jake prepared for an emotionally charged conversation. Their history loomed large between them, and he was determined to hold on to his newfound strength. Time passes and the past remains, but we both need to confront the truth, he began, feeling the weight of every word. If you want any chance of being part of their lives, you need to be honest with yourself first. You need to earn their trust again. A heavy silence hung between them. As Sarah wiped away a tear, Jake felt the presence of Laura behind him, providing silent support. He'd have to tread carefully. Sarah might not understand it, but he needed to protect his family and ensure their sense of stability was paramount. "I want to support you in your healing journey," he admitted cautiously, "but I can't do that at the expense of my children's well-being." And as they began to discuss the hard realities of their fractured relationship, he recognized that the journey toward healing was just as crucial as the destination. Each word exchanged represented a tentative step on a long, winding road toward reconciliation, one that still held the potential for growth. Through the emotional fray, Jake felt the roots of his resilience deepen, illuminated by the shared struggles of parents in the community. No path laid ahead would be easy, but it was theirs to navigate. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of hope lighting the way. And as the evening wore on, Jake realized that the story was far from over. The collective spirit of those around him, underlined by vulnerability and strength, would facilitate healing. Together, he would define his new reality, one filled with dignity, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to better days ahead. As the conversation with Sarah unfolded in the hushed corners of the gathering, Jake felt emotions swirling like a tempest within him. Her presence stirred a cocktail of memories, both beautiful and painful, evoking a whirlwind of feelings he thought he had buried. Yet amidst the chaos, he remained steadfast, carefully crafting the dialogue into something constructive. Sarah's vulnerability was raw as she recounted her experiences over the past few months. "I've been attending therapy, trying to understand why I acted the way I did," she admitted, gazing at Jake with an intensity that left him momentarily speechless. "I realized that I was running from my own insecurities, but that didn't justify my actions. I miss our family." Jake took a moment to process her words. It was the first time he had seen her genuinely reflect on her shortcomings, and the fleeting glimpse of remorse was both heartening and disconcerting. "Missing a family is one thing," he countered firmly, "but you have to understand, it's not just about your feelings. It's about what you've done and how it has affected our children." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes as she choked back a sob. "I know. I can't expect forgiveness overnight. I just want a chance, any chance, to prove I can be a better mother." "And it starts with respect," Jake emphasized, his voice steady. "Respecting our boundaries and accepting that rebuilding trust takes time." The weight of their exchange hung in the air like a thick fog, each statement resonating deeper with Jake's resolve. He peppered their discussion with reminders of the consequences that her actions had on their children, including the emotional scars that still lingered for all of them. "We've been through therapy ourselves, Jake continued, recalling the heartbreaking conversations he had with his kids about their mother's absence. "It takes time, and they deserve to see real changes before they can even think about welcoming you back. It won't be easy for any of us." "I understand that," Sarah replied, her voice trembling. "I'm willing to go through whatever it takes. Just please don't give up on me yet." Jake sensed a glimmer of determination in her tone. a spark of something resembling accountability. Yet, as desperate as he felt to allow the warmth of hope to seep back into his heart, he remembered the fortress he had painstakingly built around his family. The trust Sarah had shattered would demand not only intention, but action. Over the next few minutes, they discussed the practicalities, that her visitation would need oversight, and that she would have to demonstrate consistent effort through therapy and other supportive measures. Jake detailed the importance of her being involved in their children's lives, but only when it was safe and appropriate. He wanted to ensure that Sarah understood that the road ahead would be governed by their children's emotional safety, not her fleeting desires. This is a long journey, he cautioned, his resolve returning as the initial rush of sentimentality began to settle. If you genuinely want to be a part of their lives, you have to earn every ounce of trust back. They've been deeply affected by your choices. As they exchanged promises, Jake felt something shift, a tentative sense of understanding beginning to take root in the chaos of their lives. Sarah's willingness to face her past rang with a sense of authenticity that he hadn't expected, forcing him to recalibrate his view of her. When they rejoined the gathering, he felt keenly aware of Laura watching from the periphery. Though he wasn't ready to leap forward into romance, he appreciated her quiet support as the evening progressed. The connection they had forged remained a steady reminder that there was hope beyond their respective struggles. Throughout the evening, as families enjoyed the festivities, Jake engaged in conversation with other parents, sharing moments of laughter and camaraderie amidst his finely woven tapestry of community. But behind the smiles, the underlying currents of his conversation with Sarah weighed heavily on his mind. In the days that followed, a delicate dance began to unfold between Jake and Sarah. He gradually allowed her to be present, monitored by his vigilant care, ensuring that their children would not be blindsided. Communication became clearer. They set boundaries, ground rules for visitation, and checkpoints, allowing for gradual interaction. Each day felt like a new chapter. The kids were hesitant at first, unsure of how to feel about their mother being allowed back into their lives. They had experienced so much loss and emotional turmoil. How could they trust her again? However, Jake ensured that he spoke openly with them about their feelings, encouraging them to express their emotions, both fears and hopes. "Dad, what if she hurts us again?" his son Ethan questioned one evening, burying his face in a pillow. The worry in his young voice echoed the sentiments Jake had felt himself. "Those fears are completely valid," Jake replied, his heart aching for his son. "But we're doing this carefully and slowly. If she does anything to make you uncomfortable, remember, you can always tell me." With each passing weekend that Sarah was granted supervised visitation, Jake closely observed the fluctuating dynamics. Though there were moments when the kids hesitated, he noticed small signs of affection gradually returning, the laughter shared during interaction and the tentative steps toward rebuilding emotional connections. The reconciliation process unveiled casualties on both sides. Jake couldn't deny that the journey was filled with contradictions. His thoughts drifted to Laura, and he began to allow himself to feel something. While he was still navigating the rubble of his marriage, lingering feelings toward her began to blossom. There was mutual respect between them, and as they continued to bond over shared experiences, Jake acknowledged that he was slowly opening himself up to love again. One evening, amidst the juxtaposition of the past and the future, Jake invited Laura to join them for a family movie night. He was nervous, but hopeful. As they sprawled across the living room floor with popcorn, he found solace in their laughter. Sarah was late to arrive for her supervised time, and as Jake prepared to reroute the family plans, he realized he wouldn't have it any other way. The laughter filled the room like a balm, soothing his anxieties. "Thanks for including me in all of this," Laura said quietly, her expression softening as she dove into the moment. "That truly means a lot, especially with everything you're balancing." This time, as Jake felt the spark of connection with Laura, he allowed himself to lean further into it. I appreciate you being here. You've been a source of support that's buoyed me through some really rough waters," he admitted, looking directly into her eyes. Their shared gaze held a promise of understanding, respect, and mutual healing, a step towards something brighter. In his heart, he knew that while the world felt tumultuous, he was surrounded by a tapestry of connection, both old and new, and with every moment shared, he drew closer to redefining his future. As the evening unfolded, the walls he had built to protect himself slowly began to lower, and despite the unpredictable nature of life, Jake finally felt a hint of peace blooming within him, a gentle whisper that perhaps the future was indeed bright. The lights around them twinkled, a metaphor for hope shining through the uncertainty, illuminating the possibility of healing in both his and his children's lives. With every trial faced and every step taken, Jake steadied himself for what lay ahead, a journey of resilience, authentic relationships, and a commitment to build a life that honored both pain and joy. And as he sank deeper into the comfort of that moment, he couldn't help but smile, hoping that they were all on the brink of an extraordinary journey. As the weeks turned into months, Jake navigated uncharted waters, balancing the responsibilities of single fatherhood, an evolving relationship with Laura, and the slow but steady rebuilding of trust with Sarah. Their conversations had shifted from sterile exchanges to heartfelt discussions, marking a discernible change in the tone of their interactions. Sarah appeared more sincere, more introspective. She was consistently attending therapy sessions and engaging in honest conversations about the past with Jake. However, as the evolving dynamics of co-parenting settled into a tentative routine, Jake found himself in a precarious position. Not only did he wrestle with concerns about Sarah's commitment to change, but he also had to confront his growing feelings for Laura. The burgeoning connection felt both intoxicating and intimidating. He was caught in a whirlwind of emotions that threatened to overwhelm him at times. One evening, while tucking the kids into bed, Jake faced Ethan's curious gaze as he asked, "Dad, is Mom going to live with us again someday?" The question hung in the air like a heavy shroud, and for a moment, Jake felt his heart clench. "Ethan, your mom is doing her best to be a part of your life, but we have to take it one step at a time," Jake responded gently. He wanted to protect his son from disappointment, while still being honest about the reality they faced. "Right now, what's most important is that she's trying to earn your trust back. You can always talk to me about how you feel." That conversation lingered in Jake's mind long after he had said goodnight to the kids. Questions about the future loomed large for him. Would Sarah's continued efforts truly translate into a renewed relationship? Could he accept her back into their lives completely? Would the family dynamics allow for all of them to thrive together? Or would he always be standing on shaky ground? The following weekend, Laura helped him organize a field trip for the kids, transforming what could have been an ordinary Saturday into an unforgettable experience. The planning created a spark of excitement, something he hadn't realized he needed. "I think a day at the zoo will be perfect," Laura suggested, her enthusiasm infectious as they plotted out the details. "Sounds great," he replied, captivated by her passion. "I think the kids are going to love it." As they collaborated, he felt the void left by turmoil, slowly dissolving into something more vibrant. Their plans ignited a shared future, a future that embraced laughter, adventure, and the possibility of love. On the day of the field trip, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the world around them. Jake could hardly contain his excitement as he watched the kids gallop ahead of him, their faces painted with joy. He relished the time spent together, every playful interaction with Laura, reinforcing the notion that happiness wasn't just a flicker in the distance. It was a living, breathing entity. Hours later, as they gathered for ice cream, Jake looked at Laura, appreciating the ease of their connection. "I'm so grateful to have you here. This day turned out better than I imagined, he said, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his voice. It was fun to see the kids so happy. I love being part of this. Of your life, Laura replied, her eyes sparkling with honesty. Jake felt an overwhelming urge to lean into the moment, to express what had been bubbling beneath the surface for weeks. Laura, I know this might be sudden, but I think what we're building together is something special, he said softly. You've shown such patience as I figure things out. I felt a connection with you that I can't ignore. The air between them crackled with energy as Laura regarded him thoughtfully. Jake, I feel it too. But we need to be careful. After everything with Sarah, I want our relationship to have a solid foundation. I don't want to rush into anything until you're sure. The truth weighed high in the air, tethering them. But Jake saw in her eyes a willingness to explore their connection. I think I'm ready to try, he admitted, mindful yet hopeful. No, I don't want to lose what we have because I'm scared. Their moment hung in time, a shared understanding evolving without words, the bond strengthening in their mutual recognition of each other's trials. But before they could indulge in those deeper sentiments, Jake spotted Ethan and his daughter, Lily, bounding over with triumphant grins after spotting an exotic bird exhibit. Did you see how colorful that parrot was, Dad? Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. The kids' joy enveloped them, forcing the pair to redirect their focus. Jake tucked his feelings for Laura in the back of his mind for the time being, choosing instead to savor the exuberance of the moment. As they made their way home, Jake felt a seismic shift within him. He was no longer battling the ghosts of his past, but rather embracing the potential of what lay ahead. He had a loving community, a supportive partner, and a rebuilt family dynamic that grew more resilient each day. In the following weeks, Sarah continued to show dedication to her personal growth. Their conversations involved more accountability as she conveyed plans to pursue structured parenting techniques designed to foster a better relationship with Ethan and Lily. Each move she made reaffirmed her willingness to change. Yet, Jake couldn't quite escape the weight of distrust that occasionally surfaced, gnawing at his resolve. After a particularly difficult conversation with Sarah, where she expressed deep remorse for her past actions and articulated her yearning to repair their fractured relationship, he felt the burden mount. Would he ever see her in a different light? Could he envision a scenario where it all worked out? In the backdrop of his internal battle, Jake decided to be proactive. He sought ways to realize his dreams and elevate the community initiative he had worked so hard to establish. With growing support behind him, he planned a large community event raised to advocate for single-parent families, offering workshops, resources, and playful activities for children. It would serve as a launch pad for raising awareness about the challenges faced by single parents in their community. On the day of the event, the atmosphere burst with energy. Families gathered beneath colorful tents, set up for workshops and discussions, all imbued with the essence of healing. Jake stood at the entrance, an image of resilience wrapped in a button-up shirt, nerves pulsing through him as he prepared for the opening speech. Today is a celebration of community, love, and the strength of every single parent, he began, his voice rising above the murmur of excitement. Life doesn't just hand us easy solutions. It challenges us to rise, to learn, and ultimately, to grow together. The crowd erupted into applause, but as he continued, Jake felt the unity in the air. Each expression of gratitude and joy reflected the hard work he put in to reclaim himself and his family. With every moment, Jake found himself emerging from the shadows of pain and uncertainty, reclaiming a brighter tomorrow filled with hope. As the day unfolded, he spotted Sarah in the distance, watching tentatively. It took everything within him to maintain focus, but the truth was his gaze naturally gravitated toward her. She had arrived with a level of commitment he hadn't expected. The sight was overwhelming, a testament to how far they had come and how far they still had to go. After the festivities, Jake approached her, his heart racing. "Thanks for coming, Sarah. I know it's not easy for you," he acknowledged, tipping his head in an effort to show respect. "I want to be here for the kids," she replied, a sincere vulnerability exposing itself. "Seeing you grow into this role has been inspiring." Jake hesitated, weighed down by his mixed feelings, but choosing a sincere approach. "It matters to me that you are working on yourself. Just remember that earning your place in their lives is a marathon, not a sprint." "I understand," Sarah said, and for the first time in a long while, he saw a glimmer of hope woven into the fabric of their complicated history. That day, as Jake returned home with Lily and Ethan, he realized that his journey was ever evolving. The shadows of his past, which threatened to stifle him, were now merely stepping stones guiding him toward a brighter future. He had opened himself to vulnerability and love, forging connections with Laura while simultaneously navigating the delicate nature of co-parenting with Sarah. In navigating forgiveness, Jake reaffirmed his agency. There was strength in understanding, both for himself and for every relationship he nurtured in the intricate web of his life. As the night settled in, Jake felt peaceful gratitude wash over him. He had constructed a life defined by resilience, the power of community, and the undeniable truth that the journey toward healing was not merely about rebuilding, but about thriving through love. Love for himself, love for his children, and an emerging love that could rise towards unfathomable heights. With that realization at hand, he embraced the promise of the days to come, ready to face them head-on, together. As the weeks progressed, following the successful community event, life began to take on a new rhythm for Jake. He felt invigorated by the momentum gained through his initiative, and the positive feedback from families served as both validation and encouragement. Each day, Jake devoted himself to building a supportive network for single parents, threading together workshops and discussions that focused not only on practical resources, but also on emotional healing, aspects he had grappled with himself. His connection with Laura deepened as they collaborated closely in the initiative, exchanging ideas and brainstorming potential projects that expanded its reach. They would often spend late nights after the kids had gone to bed, their conversations flowing easily, laced with laughter and shared passion. There was a magnetic chemistry between them that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. But Jake knew he needed to approach this budding relationship with care, considering everything at stake. One evening, amidst the hustle of family life, Jake found himself alone with Laura during a workshop debrief. "I can't believe how far we've come," he marveled, leaning against the kitchen counter, a warm mug of coffee in hand. "I never thought I could pull something like this off, especially after what happened with Sarah." Laura smiled, her eyes dancing with warmth. "You should be proud. You're not just rebuilding for yourself, you're creating a support system for so many. That's a huge accomplishment." Jake felt his heart swell. Her encouragement was grounding. "Thanks, Laura. I couldn't have done it without you. Your insights have been invaluable." As their laughter floated through the kitchen, an unexpected pull drew Jake toward Laura. He hesitated for a moment, the weight of his emotions anchoring him back. But standing there, with the comforting ambiance of shared success wrapping around them, he couldn't ignore the feelings that had been simmering beneath the surface. "I care about you, Laura. I think I'm finally ready to see where this goes," he blurted out, the realization hitting him like a breath of fresh air. "There's something about being around you that feels right." Her smile widened and she stepped closer. "I care about you too, Jake. I've felt this connection for a while now, but I didn't want to rush in. Let's take this slow and see where it leads." His chest lightened with relief as they stood close, both uncertain yet brimming with possibility. Their chemistry ignited, It was a new beginning that offered hope, yet also carried the weight of caution. They exchanged a longing gaze, but chose to navigate this connection delicately, ensuring they kept their priorities intact. The following day was a momentous occasion. Jake invited Sarah for a Saturday visit with the kids, offering supervised time in a nearby park. It was a deliberate step forward in their fragile reconstruction process, allowing the kids to spend time with her in a playful environment. Jake wanted to ensure that the atmosphere was light, a safe space where they could interact positively. As they arrived at the park, Jake felt the tension rise, but he reminded himself that this was about the kids. "Hey, you're here!" he called out to Sarah, who approached with evident nervousness, her smile attempting to mask her unease. "Thanks for having me, Jake," she replied, glancing sideways as she took in the lovely sun-soaked day. The kids ran ahead, their laughter bouncing off the playground equipment as they raced towards swings and slides. And for a moment, he felt a flicker of hope. Sarah seemed genuinely excited to see them, her demeanor softening as she began to interact more freely. "Watching them play is wonderful," Jake said, trying to keep the conversation light while observing how she engaged with Ethan and Lily. "I wish I could have been here for more of their milestones," Sarah said, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "I know I've missed so much, and I want to fix that." Jake nodded, feeling a buzz of discomfort as he gauged her sincerity. "That comes with time and effort, Sarah. This isn't just about showing up. They need to feel that you've changed." "I understand," she said earnestly, her gaze sincere. "I've been working hard, trying to reflect on everything. I really want to earn their trust back." The afternoon unfolded with guarded optimism, interspersed with moments of laughter, as Jake observed Sarah carefully navigate the delicate interactions with the kids. She tried her best to engage in their games, her efforts genuine even as hesitation lingered at the edges of her actions. The brighter moments, however, were sometimes overshadowed by uncertainty, especially as Jake felt inexplicably torn. The fortress he had built around his heart was chipping away, each attempt by Sarah to connect opening doors to memories he had long buried but not yet healed. "Lily, look at me, swing high," Ethan called out, drawing their attention as he soared through the air on the swings. The sound of their laughter punctured Jake's momentary distraction, and he watched the joy on their faces, realizing that despite their complicated history, this was where his focus needed to be. After hours spent at the park, Jake and Sarah shared a quiet moment while the kids played nearby. "I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to spend this time with them," Sarah said softly, vulnerability flooding her tone. "I know I've hurt everyone, and it's going to take time for them to accept me back, but I hope they will one day." Feeling a mix of empathy and caution, Jake replied, "This is just the beginning. The journey won't be easy, but every effort counts. It's important that you prove yourself over time." "I will," Sarah promised, her voice steady. "I want to be there for them and for you as well. I understand that my actions hurt you, and I'm truly sorry for everything." He absorbed her words, trying to assess the sincerity behind them. The air felt almost electric, swirling with unspoken potential. "It'll take work on both our parts, Sarah. I want what's best for the kids. They need to see you not just as a mother, but as a stable figure in their lives." As they moved deeper into this dialogue, Jake felt something shift, a tentative sense of renewal that could pave a path forward. Sarah seemed more committed than ever to prove her transformation was genuine. Returning home that night, Jake felt a wave of bittersweet reflection wash over him. The complexities of the day weighed heavily, yet amid it all were glimpses of a healing future, a mosaic he had fought hard to construct. In the subsequent days, as that new mosaic began to take form, Jake continued fostering his connection with Laura. They explored the depths of their budding relationship, establishing a rhythm that invited warmth and affection. There were moments filled with shared laughter, supportive conversations, and gentle touches, that grew bolder with each passing interaction. Meanwhile, Jake found it easier to navigate the co-parenting landscape with Sarah, as their new dynamic shifted toward collaboration. She displayed progress in her attempts to connect with Ethan and Lily, gradually earning small victories in their day-to-day interactions. "Dad, I think Mom is getting better," Lily said one evening as they sat together on the couch, wrapped in cozy blankets, while a family movie played in the background. Ethan nodded in agreement, having gauged his own interactions with their mother recently. "I hope you feel comfortable with her when you're together," Jake replied, his heart warmed by their resilience. "Yeah, she played with us at the park, and it was fun," Ethan chimed in, a bright smile on his face. Those innocent moments helped solidify the notion that maybe, just maybe, this family could redefine their narrative. Though it was fraught with challenges, every effort made brought them closer to rewriting their story. That night, as he tucked the kids into bed, Jake felt a lightness in the air, a reminder that healing could blossom in the right conditions. And the essence of that healing anchored him firmly in the present, illuminating the promising journey ahead, where hope, love, and healing intertwined. As Jake drifted off to sleep, he embraced the feeling of renewal. Possibilities flooded his mind. This was just the beginning. With every chaotic moment that shaped their lives, he was ready to confront whatever lay ahead, fueled by newfound love, purpose, and the unwavering belief that transformation could emerge from even the most tumultuous storms.